The House will come to order. It is my honor to call the House to order today for the purpose of hosting a joint convention of the House and Senate for the purpose of receiving the governor's message on the state of the state. Pursuant to custom, I'm now pleased to introduce Senate President Matt Huffman.
Is there a quorum of the Senate present? The chair recognizes the President pro tem, Senator Scheuring.
Thank you, Mr. President. A quorum of the Senate is present.
Is there a quorum of the House present? The chair recognizes the Speaker pro tem, Representative Olselager.
Thank you, Mr. President. A quorum of the House is present.
A quorum of the 135th General Assembly being present, this joint convention will come to order. We invite our guests to please rise as we open with prayer. We will be led in prayer today by Associate Pastor Ann Palmerton from the Broad Street Presbyterian Church of Columbus, Ohio. After the prayer, please remain standing for the presentation of the colors by officers from the Department of Natural Resources and the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and to the Republic. Pastor Palmerton.
Let us pray. Gracious God, this is the day that you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We gather here in this place full of history and tradition, and we turn toward you. Over time and across the generations, you exercise your work for peace and for justice and for freedom. You enact your governance in ways overt and in ways hidden. We pray your governance in our beloved state of Ohio, that your purpose may prevail. We pray that we as citizens and representatives may care ever more deeply about the public face of your purpose. God, you include those who are hungry, those who are unhoused, those who are imprisoned as members of your family. In the awareness of suffering and need, we offer you our own complicated lives. Thank you for being among us as we pray, for we too belong to you in your faithfulness. Teach us to count our days as gifts of mercy. Teach us to value the physical and mental wellness of our children and all children. Teach us to care for land and water, to care for neighbor, to care for the future, even as you care for us. So together we can make of this old world a new world. Renew our desire to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with you. These things we pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of the State of Ohio, Mike DeWine. Welcome to the House.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Speaker Stevens, President Huffman, Leader Antonio, Russo, members of the General Assembly, Chief Justice Kennedy, justices of the Ohio Supreme Court, elected statewide elected officials, Lieutenant Governor Houston, my fellow citizens of Ohio. We meet at a time of great opportunity for Ohio, a time of great opportunity for Ohio and its citizens. Yet it is also a time of great challenges. Our future is bright, but that future will be defined by how well we educate all our children and how we tear down the barriers to their success. We are challenged as never before because at no time in our history has the full education of our children been more important. The budget that I will present to you today reflects the moral imperative we have to see that all Ohioans are fully educated. And therefore, every Ohioan will have the tools to live up to their full God-given potential. Our budget is fiscally sound, spending one-time money on one-time expenditures, averting a fiscal cliff in future years when this one-time money is gone. It's a budget that focuses on our people, on our families, and our children, for they are truly Ohio's greatest assets. It reflects our obligation to make sure every Ohioan has the tools to succeed, to get a good job, to live their dreams, whatever that may be. So, my fellow Ohioans, let's start with our children. We know that reading unlocks the door for all future learning and truly provides a lifetime of opportunities. It opens the door to good jobs, but really, it opens the door to life. Reading can take what seems like a dark world and make it bright. It can fire a child's imagination and turns what looks like a black and white world into vivid and bright colors. But tragically, today, 40% of all Ohio third grade students are not proficient in reading. 40%. So today, I'm calling for a renewed focus on literacy and on the way we teach reading in the state of Ohio. The jury's returned. The evidence is clear. The verdict is in. There's a great deal of research, real research about how we learn to read. And today we understand the great value and the importance of phonics. Not all literacy curriculums are created equal. And sadly, many Ohio students do not have access to the most effective reading curriculum. So in our budget, we're making sure that all Ohio children have access to curriculum that is aligned with the evidence-based approaches of the science of reading. Our budget directs the Ohio Department of Education to lay out a plan informed by research and evidence to ensure that all Ohio students have the best opportunity to master the skill of reading. Further, our budget directs them to help students in our public, our STEM, and our charter schools by providing funding to each school to pay for curriculum based on the science of reading and for professional development for those teachers needing it in that curriculum. We know that the earlier a child is reading on grade level, the better that child will do in later grades and in life. We also know that what happens to a child before they start school determines that chance of success. With your help in the past in efforts to reduce infant mortality and to improve maternal health, we have doubled the number of new and expectant moms participating in evidence-based home visiting where trained professionals offer valuable help to moms. In our proposed budget, we will grow this program to serve nearly 10,000 additional families. To further reduce infant mortality and to help more mothers, our budget will also expand access to safe, stable housing for pregnant and new mothers. Now we know that a child's brain is 80% developed by the time they turn 3. So these first years of growth are so very, very, very important. That's why introducing children to books as soon as they're born is vital to their development. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, members of the General Assembly, thank you. Thank you for your continued support for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. At this time, I would like to introduce my bride, Fran, my best friend, and bride of over 55 years. Fran told me this morning that 51% of Ohio children from birth to 5 are now enrolled in the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. When we took office, when she became First Lady, that number was under 10%. She also told me that now over 366,000 Ohio kids are receiving a free book in the mail every single month. And not only that, since Fran became First Lady, more than 10 million books have been mailed to Ohio's children. You have helped by providing funding for the books and by connecting us with organizations and supporters in your districts who work with and serve children and families. I also want to thank those local organizations, United Way, public libraries, community foundations, hospitals, Head Start programs, preschools, and so many, many others, who have also provided funding and who have helped with enrollment. The Imagination Library is really about helping families. We know that sometimes it's tough, it's difficult to be a parent. But what happens at home and how a child grows up impacts them more than really anything else. For Ohio to be the best state in the nation to raise a family, we must do everything we can to better support families. And so our budget will do the following. To ease the financial burden on new parents, our budget asks you to repeal the state sales tax on critical infant supplies such as diapers, wipes, cribs, car seats, strollers, and safety equipment. Further, I'm also asking you to enact a $2,500 per child state tax deduction. Our budget will make available child care for more working families. Many Ohio parents must choose between taking on full-time, full-year work or staying unemployed or underemployed because they cannot afford the high cost of child care. Through our budget, 15,000 more Ohio children and working families will have access to high-quality child care that will help them start kindergarten with the skills needed to succeed. Next, we're going to make it easier for families to adopt children into safe, loving, permanent homes. Currently, children adopted through the public children's service system have access to Medicaid coverage, but children adopted through private agencies do not, even if these children have complex medical needs. We know there are many families who would love to open their homes to a child, including children who have serious health needs. But those families cannot afford to do so. In our budget, we will extend that same opportunity for health care coverage to all children who are adopted in the state of Ohio. Once again, with your help, we've been transforming foster care in Ohio. We created a Foster Youth Bill of Rights, and we established a statewide advocate for youth and families who independently now investigates reports of abuse and misconduct within Ohio's foster care system. And I'm also proud of our work to create the Children's Services Transformation Council. Members of this council traveled across the state to hear directly from those impacted by foster care, and they developed 37 separate recommendations to improve the system. And I'm very pleased to report to you that every single one of those recommendations has either been fully implemented or is in the process of being implemented, and I thank you for that implementation as well. We also must do more to help the families involved in the child welfare system. Historically, the state has woefully underfunded our county children's service agencies. Working together in our last two budgets, we have more than doubled state funding for them. However, Ohio still remains near the bottom nationally for funding, and many of our children's service agencies continue to struggle. So to better support children, families, and the caseworkers who serve them, we will once again increase their funding in our new proposed budget. There are other families in Ohio with vulnerable children who have unique needs, who up until now have had no place to go to seek help. They face challenges that many of us cannot even comprehend. We will help them as well. In our last budget, we created, with your help, Ohio Rise, a specialized program to help children with mental health challenges. Challenges that are so complex and so severe that these children are at risk of being unable to even stay in their homes, their families. Now, families in this program are assigned a hands-on case manager, someone with a small caseload who can provide individualized attention and help that family get the best possible care for their child. Ohio Rise is now getting immediate care to over 16,000 Ohio children by helping communities develop new and intensive behavioral health services that are tailored to the specific needs of these children. Our budget that will allow us to connect many more families to these desperately needed services. Ohio Rise is also giving hope back to families. In the words of one mother, and I quote, "Ohio Rise has saved my son's life. He's smiling again. There's laughter in our home, and my son is healing." One of my first acts as governor was to create the Governor's Children's Initiative. We made great progress by working collaboratively across agencies and breaking down silos to help children. But we also quickly learned that the supports we provide Ohio children are strewn across departments, agencies, offices, sometimes causing duplication and inefficiencies. The issues impacting the lives of our children are simply too important to leave scattered throughout multiple agencies without a member of the governor's cabinet driving them each and every day. And so in our budget, I'm asking you, I'm proposing the creation of a new cabinet-level agency called the Department of Children and Youth. This statewide agency will allow us to have a sharp focus on children's issues. Our proposed Department of Children and Youth Services will consolidate programs from 6 different state agencies and focus specifically on the following. 1, the physical health of mothers, infants, and children. 2, children's behavioral health and the early identification of and intervention in mental health needs. 3, children in foster care. 4, early childhood education. We're excited about the prospect of this new department and what it will mean for Ohio children and for their families. One of the things families never used to worry about was the safety of their children in school. Today, sadly, they do. When I took office, our local schools were receiving very little help from the state for school safety. So I created the Ohio School Safety Center, which is dedicated to helping schools, public and private, to address security needs, from the physical security of their buildings, to training our school officials in threat assessment, to improving our schools' emergency response plans. Each day, our experts at the School Safety Center are scanning social media for threats to our students. They're responding to calls to the anonymous tip line, and they're working with our local officials on each district's unique safety needs. Our proposed budget will allow us to continue and expand this work. Further, some school officials have told me that they would like to place a school resource officer in their school, but they simply cannot afford to do so. In this budget that we are presenting to you, we offer all schools, again, public and private, who want a school resource officer with additional state funding to help them do that. We also want to do this because oftentimes there's a trust that gets built between students and the officer that would not otherwise occur, but for that officer being in the school every single day. One of the fringe benefits of having that. When kids feel safe at school, they're better able to learn. We want all students to attend schools where they're safe and have the resources they need to succeed, which is why our budget continues the implementation of the Cupp-Patterson school funding formula. Now, children have unique needs, so we want families to have the opportunity to send their children to a school that best meets those needs. That's why our budget proposal includes an historic investment in the Ed Choice Scholarship Program by expanding eligibility to families at or below 400% of the federal poverty level. This investment will allow more families than ever to take advantage of this scholarship and to find the best school for their children. Now, for some families, choice means a charter school. And we are continuing to expand choice for those families by increasing funding for high-quality charter schools. Under our budget, for students attending high-quality charter schools, our budget provides an additional $3,000 for each economically disadvantaged student. It also increases the per-pupil facilities funding for all charter schools from $500 to $1,000. Parents want their children to be healthy and happy and to find a passion, something they love to do, something that allows them to live out their dreams, whatever those dreams may be. Many Ohio families are seeing their children find that passion in their county career centers. Lieutenant Governor Houston, Fran and I have spent a lot of time recently visiting career tech centers across our state. At the Medina County Career Center, I met students learning HVAC and construction trades, as well as those studying sports medicine, cybersecurity. At the Fairfield County Workforce Center, I visited students and the manufacturers who are now providing them jobs. And at the Tri-Rivers Career Center in Marion, I talked with teachers who are teaching adults welding, industrial maintenance, robotics, and more. When Fran and I and the Lieutenant Governor were visiting these career centers, we would talk to the teachers and the superintendents about the different programs that they were offering. We would ask about the number of students enrolled, and so often they would tell us that more kids want to take these courses, but they're waitless because there simply aren't enough open spots. In other cases, they told us they don't have the most modern, up-to-date equipment needed to teach certain courses. We must change that, and we are going to change this. To reach more students and to provide better training for 21st century jobs, our budget will invest $300 million of one-time funding for capital improvements and equipment for our career tech education across the state of Ohio. If a child's passion instead takes them to college, so many families today worry if they can afford it at all. And so, for the first time ever, we will provide need-based financial aid to students choosing to enroll in community colleges or in university regional campuses. Our budget will also expand the state's need-based scholarship, known as Ohio College Opportunity Grants, OCOG, in two very, very important ways. First, we will significantly expand eligibility to include many more working Ohio families. Second, we will increase the scholarship amount to $6,000 per student, renewable for each of 4 years. Further, to reward academic excellence, if you're in the top 5% of your high school graduating class, wherever you go to high school in the state of Ohio, we plan to reward you with a $5,000 a year scholarship, also renewable for each of 4 years if you choose to attend college in the state of Ohio. We want our children to grow, to learn, and ultimately live and work right here in the state of Ohio. And we know that the changes we've announced today will help them do that. Keeping our young people in Ohio has never been more important as we create jobs faster than we can fill them. Now, I want to take a moment, again, to recognize my friend and my partner in moving Ohio forward, and that is Lieutenant Governor John Husted. John has worked relentlessly on growing our workforce and on economic development. You know, since the Intel announcement just a year ago, we've celebrated groundbreakings, expansions, and investments all over the state of Ohio. Smucker's announced plans for a new research and development facility in Orrville. Abbott chose Bowling Green for the site of its new powder formula facility. MedPace is expanding its healthcare research work in Cincinnati. Ohio, which has such a rich history in automotives, has also become an emerging force in electric vehicle and EV parts manufacturing. Ford chose Avon Lake for the assembly of its all-new commercial electric vehicle. General Motors selected Toledo for its first electric vehicle propulsion plant in the United States. And Honda, with whom Ohio's partnership stretches back 40 years, chose Fayette County for its brand new EV battery plant. We are on the roll. My friends, my fellow Ohioans, there is no question Ohio is truly on the move. In the last 4 years, 48 companies left the East Coast or West Coast for Ohio. That's creating more than 14,000 new jobs, $1.1 billion in new Ohio payroll, and almost $25 billion in new capital investment. Well, we've had so many successes. And everyone is excited about Intel and everything else. But I have heard from a lot of people outside of central Ohio who sometimes say, well, how about us? One of the reasons Intel is locating in Licking County in central Ohio is because the site was one of the few in the state that could handle an economic development project of that magnitude in that time period. The truth is, we simply do not have enough shovel-ready, development-ready sites for the kind of calls we're getting from companies all over the world. If a manufacturer calls and says we need 400 acres with roads, water, gas, and electricity, we need to have sites immediately available to show them now, because that's what they want. Our goal is this. We want all regions of the state to participate in Ohio's economic revival, and for all Ohioans, no matter where they live, to prosper from it. Every region of the state has good sites. However, many of them are not yet ready for development. When a business is looking for a site, I can just tell you from experience in talking to them, they want to move now. They want to move quickly. And so what do? We must get these sites ready so that we can capture these jobs and capture them in every part of the state of Ohio. As Ronald Reagan once said, America is too great for small dreams. But my friends, so is Ohio. And that is why our budget creates the All Ohio Future Fund, a one-time investment that will provide a lifetime of returns. We will make an unprecedented $2.5 billion investment to prepare the infrastructure of large economic development sites located in every single part of the state of Ohio. And my commitment is this: with the development of these sites, every single Ohio citizen will be within commuting distance of at least one of these sites. Innovation is in our blood. And with your help, we now have thriving innovation districts in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. They partner businesses with our colleges and universities to develop new STEM education talent, create tens of thousands of jobs, and bring about new research, extraordinary technology, and life-saving medical advancements. In this budget, we will invest an additional $150 million to create new innovation hubs in regions throughout the state of Ohio. These hubs will bring together each community's strengths to encourage more economic development and attract the very best talent. For the past year, I've talked a lot about mental health. But you know, there was a time when no one wanted to talk about it. A time when it was easier to simply look the other way. My fellow Ohioans, that time is over. Each one of us knows someone who's struggling. Maybe you have a friend who's depressed or anxious about the future. Maybe your brother or your sister has schizophrenia, but you've never told your friends because you're too embarrassed. Maybe your mom or dad has an addiction to alcohol or opioids and can no longer hold a job. Maybe your child has bipolar disorder and has contemplated suicide. Or maybe you yourself have. Thankfully, more people today are starting to talk more openly about these issues, just as Bengals tight end Hayden Hurst is doing by sharing publicly his own mental health struggles. And we applaud him for that and all who are talking. and also through education campaigns like our public-private partnership to create the Beat the Stigma commercials, which have now been seen by nearly 90% of all Ohioans. As author and civil rights activist James Baldwin once said, and I quote, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it is faced." And so, my fellow Ohioans, we must face the fact that no Ohioan will ever fully live up to their potential or be able to lead purposeful and meaningful lives if their mental illness remains in the shadows and untreated. Despite all the good intentions of the past, our country has never fully built a community mental health system. 60 years ago, President John F. Kennedy signed the Community Mental Health Act of 1963, releasing thousands of women and men with mental illness from psychiatric hospitals. The promise then was that a system of care would be built so that these men and women and others with untreated mental illness could live with dignity and receive treatment in their own communities. Sadly, that promise was never fully kept, not nationally nor here in the state of Ohio. And the community system of care was never fully built. But with your help, we have started to make progress. Since the time I took office, beginning with the student wellness and student success dollars for our schools, right up to the present, to the additional resources you provide in the recent lame duck session, we're tackling things head on, and thank you for that. Yet, we know there remains so much to do. The budget that I'm releasing today is centered on, one, building a community care system that increases prevention efforts. Two, offering better crisis response services and treatment options. Three, growing our behavioral health workforce. And four, focusing on much-needed research and innovation. In this budget, you will see growing investments to expand what's working. And now we're going to take them to all 88 counties, including the following: treatment and counseling services delivered either in person or through telehealth visits to people directly in their homes and in their workplaces. Suicide prevention to end the needless loss of our brothers and our sisters. Support for our youngest Ohioans so they can have a great start to life and get help at the earliest sign of a behavioral health need. Expansion of the crisis care system and the new 988 hotline so fewer Ohioans end up in the emergency room. And increased access to state hospitals and private psychiatric hospitals to ease stress on families, emergency departments, courts, and jails. Further, we're proposing a one-time investment to expand the capacity of our pediatric behavioral health care system to address the shortage of behavioral health professionals serving children and to expand critical facilities. Now, while many families are getting good results from what's currently available, others sadly languish. And so we must do more. We must not accept that mental illness and addiction are inevitable, or that some of these illnesses can't be prevented, or that we have advanced treatment just as far as it will go, or that recovery is only for a few and the lucky. None of these things are true. What instead is true is that Ohioans know how to impact change. Ohioans don't wait for others to solve our problems. That's not who we are. It's not in our DNA. What is in our DNA is a great passion for and history of research and innovation. Many examples, from the Wright brothers taking the lead on flight research, Albert Sabin developing the life-saving oral polio vaccine. Look, our history is when we have a problem, we figure out solutions. And then the rest of the world follows Ohio. as we look toward how we continue to address the mental health and addiction challenges of our citizens and our families. I'm reminded of something Desmond Tutu once said. I quote, "There comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. So to make meaningful change, we must figure out why so many of our fellow Ohioans keep falling into that proverbial river. And finally, get to the root cause of mental illness and addiction. So we must engage the best and brightest minds in Ohio and any others that we can attract to Ohio, and we will attract them, to focus on what's really holding Ohio families and communities back. In doing so, our budget will approach mental health care more holistically. For the truth is, from research to treatment to understanding the biological, cultural, and situational aspects of mental illness, we have not to this point brought things together in a cohesive way. This work will involve a coordinated, comprehensive investment in new innovations to achieve better outcomes, and will recognize that what works for one person in one community may not work for everyone everywhere else in Ohio. And so, members of the General Assembly, I ask you to again join me. And join me this time in creating the State of Ohio Action for Resiliency Network, or the SOAR Network. This effort will harness the talent of our citizens to deploy a first-of-its-kind, comprehensive, multi-year research study that includes Ohioans from all regions of the state. This and other research opportunities will help us launch new discoveries about the brain and about resilience. It will help us understand the unique nature of mental health issues across Ohio's urban, suburban, rural, and Appalachian communities to better determine which interventions work best in our many diverse communities. It will look at individuals, but also take a multi-generational view of how these individuals fit into a family and into a community. It will include an interdisciplinary research team of counselors, social workers, sociologists, nurses, psychologists, and medical doctors from all over Ohio. And they will work collectively to determine which counseling or other support programs in the community can best improve resiliency so Ohioans can remain effectively engaged in school, in the workplace, and in their community, and most importantly, in their own home with their own family. It will help us support our most vulnerable citizens by figuring out how to most effectively reduce the risk of suicide, the risk of addiction, the risk of overdose, and by investing in additional evidence-based initiatives that we know will work. And finally, as these great minds develop new ways on preventing and treating mental health conditions, we will train Ohio's behavioral health workforce in cutting-edge therapies. And we will put this research into practice. And we will do this in real time. And we will do it in every single corner of the state of Ohio. We will do these things. We will do these things because they keep Ohioans working and our state thriving. But we will also do them because it is simply the right thing to do. Too many Ohioans lack adequate and affordable housing. In recent years, we've experienced lower rates of housing construction, low vacancy rates in rental properties. This has put a strain on our housing market, especially affecting Ohioans with low and moderate incomes. We started a housing conversation last year in the waning days of the legislative session. At that time, I pledged to the people of Ohio that we would address the issue of housing holistically, to encourage the development of housing for lower-income families, help more Ohioans achieve the dream of ownership, and continue the revitalization of our downtowns and our historic communities. I am proposing in this budget a series of tax changes and programs. For the first time ever, we will create both state low-income housing tax credits and single-family housing tax credits to stimulate the construction of more housing for more families. And we will create an Ohio home ownership savings account program with Treasurer of State Sprague to allow Ohioans to save for down payments and other qualified housing expenses with a reduced state tax consequence. Virtually every Ohio family has a family member or knows someone living in a nursing home. Today, Ohio has over 960 nursing homes. Most of them are very good, with many wonderful and compassionate workers caring for the residents. And let me just say thank you to all of them who are caring for our loved ones. But tragically, nursing home horror stories happen in every part of our state. I have received gut-wrenching letters from families begging for help. Oftentimes, these are preventable tragedies caused by systemic problems in the nursing home, including poor infection prevention and control, medication errors, failure to provide care, and sometimes elder abuse. Now, sadly, Ohio ranks 39th as a state in the most recent CMS overall quality star ratings. And disturbingly, when we look at the record, too many of the facilities in Ohio have very inconsistent compliance with standards of care, going up and down, repeating and correcting the same deficiencies over and over and over again. Now, I know that the General Assembly will be looking at the rebasing system this year, and I look forward to working with all of you and with our nursing homes to make sure that nursing homes are adequately funded. But any discussion about rebasing must also include a serious discussion about quality in our nursing homes. In the coming days, I will be appointing a task force to study the issues surrounding quality of life and quality of care in our nursing homes. This matter is urgent, and I will give this group a short timeline to report back to the people of the state of Ohio. They will travel across the state and will hear directly from residents and families about their own lived experiences. We will give them a voice, and we will empower them to help drive solutions. The most important function of government is to keep families safe. I want to thank the General Assembly for your continued support for efforts to keep our families safe, your support for law enforcement. You've helped hundreds of agencies purchase body cameras. Recent events have once again shown us how important body camera footage can be, and shown us as well the critical need for ongoing training for our law enforcement officers. And so, in addition to more resources for body cameras, my budget includes $40 million per year for continuous training for Ohio law enforcement officers on topics ranging from de-escalation to use of force to crisis intervention for someone with a mental health illness. This is consistent with one of the recommendations of the legislature's Law Enforcement Training Funding Study Commission. Training matters. Training matters, and training makes a difference, and we must invest in it. Through your support of our Violent Crime Reduction Grant Program, we're helping communities better fight and prevent crime. For example, in Westlake, the police department came to us because of a significant spike in domestic violence, aggravated assault, and gun crimes. With our grant funding, they purchased technology that helps predict where crime will occur. And as a result, Westlake is reporting they've reduced their gun-related crimes by 77%. We've also created the Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Center, or ONIC, whose focus all day, every day, is helping local authorities with drug trafficking investigations. Many law enforcement agencies simply don't have the capacity to process large amounts of data from computers and cell phones. ONIC helps do that. So far, they've assisted in nearly 3,200 criminal investigations, and they've analyzed more than 7,500 digital devices. Now let me talk about the next generation 911 system, something that every single Ohioan should focus on. You might be surprised to learn that under many current 911 systems, when you call on your cell phone, it doesn't necessarily go directly to your local dispatch center. However, the next generation 911 system routes calls directly to local dispatchers and uses your cell phone's GPS to more quickly get first responders to your exact location. Great burden on local government. And so, our budget will fully fund this system in every single Ohio community. We will also help more agencies utilize the multi-agency radio communication system that most of us know as MARCS. More than 3,000 first responder agencies in Ohio currently use MARCS to communicate with each other across jurisdictional lines. However, as you know, many others use different radio systems, often making communication difficult with officers from other jurisdictions. So to improve the way our first responders communicate, our budget will fully pay the monthly fees for any agency that uses MARCS radios. In Ohio, water is one of our greatest assets. It's tied directly to our health, our quality of life, our ability to create jobs, and as Lieutenant Governor would remind me, our ability to fish. So members of the General Assembly, again, thank you. Thank you for protecting Ohio's water. And for twice in the past, in our first two budgets, investing in H2 Ohio, which has been focused on the algae bloom problem in Lake Erie. Now, I'm happy to report that this program is going according to plan and is on track. So far, we've enrolled 1.5 million acres of farmland in Northwest Ohio to reduce the runoff. We created or actively creating or restoring more than 265 wetlands to filter these same nutrients out of over 110,000 acres of watershed. As part of this process, H2 Ohio has also planted 80,000 trees, protected 90 threatened or endangered species. Further, H2 Ohio has put a focus on removing lead pipes. And a major accomplishment came about last year when the program helped remove and replace every single lead service line leading into child care facilities in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, we have exciting plans to expand H2 Ohio to cover the entire state. Over the next biennium, we will begin work to improve the quality and health of our rivers, which are critical for wildlife habitat, infrastructure, drinking water, economic development, and recreation. With your support, we will create the H2 Ohio Rivers Initiative. From the Little Muskingum to the Little Miami to the Cuyahoga, Kokosing, and Cognac Creek, we will work to preserve and protect the health of Ohio's rivers and the land and wildlife habitats alongside them by cleaning up polluted waterways, strategically removing dams, and restoring rivers across the state to their former glory. The Bible warns us of the dangers of unclear and uncertain leadership as an uncertain trumpet. For if the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself for battle? And so I have tried today to be crystal clear about where I believe we must go as a state and what we must do. However, I also recognize the great role, the constitutional role of this General Assembly and the role you play in our system of government. But all of us must remember, and I think take comfort in, the fact our greatness as a state lies not so much in our leaders, but rather in the wisdom and the common sense and the goodness of our people. May God bless Ohio, and may God bless his people. Thank you very much.
The chair recognizes the President Pro Tem, Senator Schuring, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the joint convention adjourns.
Without objection, the joint convention is adjourned.